Hi guys, it's Miss Piccioli, and I'm here to tell you about a time in my life that made me a better person. And I thought this was it was a hard a hard theme to wrap my head around as to what story to tell. Um, but then I realized I did have a pretty good story. So um, almost 20 years ago, when my oldest daughter was just a baby, Ellie, the one who's afraid of butterflies. You heard her story a couple days ago. Um, my husband had been laid off from his job. We were living in a two-bedroom apartment, tiny baby. She was 4 months old at the time, 5 months old at the time. I was still teaching at Brown, and he had been laid off, but it was kind of like we thought perfect timing. His company had been a startup company that just didn't work, and he had a new job lined up already. And so we had a whole month at the end of the summer and the beginning of the school year. We were like, this is kind of perfect. We have a new baby. It's the summertime. Like, how lucky are we for you to have, to be home for that long? And so I started the school year off, and Bill was home with Ellie, and it was great. And he had a job lined up. He was going to start in a couple of weeks at that point. He was waiting for his boss to get back from vacation, or his new boss, his was soon to be new boss, was on vacation. And then 9/11 hit. And the day after, his new boss, or his soon to be, or would have been new boss, called him and said, sorry, we have to rescind our offer. We have to take back the job offer. And that happened to a lot of people. A lot of companies stopped hiring, and it was really hard to get jobs for a long time after 9/11. And he was out of work for 2 years, and he did everything. He's very handy with his hands. He likes to build. His brother is a master plumber, and Bill's pretty good at plumbing. He's not a plumber, but he's worked with his brother enough. He would work. If his brother needed some help, he would work for him. He would take odd jobs, and he was constantly looking for a job. But it lasted for a really long time, and we joke about it now, and we call it our lean years, because it got lean. Like, I was lucky enough that I still had my job, and we were also lucky that Ellie was a baby. Little babies don't need much. They need diapers, which are expensive, but they don't have dance class or soccer class, or they don't need money to go to the movies, or, so that was a good thing. And, but there were many weeks where we looked at our bills, and we looked at the money we had. We're like, how are we going to get through this? But I always reminded myself that we had a safety net. If it really came down to it, and we couldn't afford our apartment anymore, I knew that we could move in with my parents, or we could move in with Bill's parents. Like, we had people that we could go to for help. And it made me a better person, because I realized, even though I knew this, emotionally, it made me think of the people who might have been in my situation, or in a worse situation than me, that didn't have the safety net. In other words, that didn't have people that could have helped them out for whatever reason, and they were on their own. And I just always reminded myself of that we're lucky. Despite Bill not having a job, and despite it being pretty stressful at times, we were still pretty lucky, because we knew if it ever got worse, we had places to go. And I think about that a lot. I've been thinking about that time in my life a lot now, during this whole coronavirus situation, because a lot of families have lost their jobs. Our unemployment rate is the highest it's been since the Great Depression. And I think of how lucky we are that my husband still has a job. I still have a job. My husband had to lay off half of his team last week, and it was pretty stressful for him to do that. And I've learned that it's not the things that you have, and that we'll get through this together. And we're lucky right now that he was able to keep his job. And it also made me realize that, you know what, the worst thing besides getting sick might be you could lose your house, which would be really sad, and I would hate that. But those times, those 2 years when we really struggled, made me realize we can get through it. And it made me a stronger, better person. And it made me more grateful, and it made me more appreciative. and it reminds me all the time to every day look around and say, I'm a very lucky person. And so that's my story. Thank you. Bye.